guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, HOA President Broke Into My Home and Stole My Money. I destroyed the entire HOA. Summary. Man from the HOA steals from his neighbor but is too drunk to realize that he's been caught on camera the entire time. Now he's lost his seat on the board and faces jail time. The story that I'm about to tell you is what opened my eyes to realizing that you probably don't know your neighbor at all. I had lived in my home in my nice, quiet, gated community for many years and never had an issue. The HOA was always a little picky about silly stuff, but for the most part their rules and regulations made sense. That is until this jackass of a guy moved in next door to me. You know, it was a real heartbreak to lose my original neighbor because he turned out to be a great friend to me and the man who moved in is a real jerk. To make things freaking worse, he went and joined the HOA too. How is this man a jerk? Well, let me tell you. First of all, I'm just a genuinely good neighbor, okay? I always am respectful to the people around me. I don't throw parties or have loud music or ridiculous decorations. The HOAs never had to send me a single warning letter. Oh, and I have fabulous landscaping, damn it. Anyway, this new neighbor of mine was immediately off-putting and curt to say the least. He didn't appreciate something about my apparel or maybe my car that I had in the driveway at the moment while I was working on my motorcycle in the garage. My introduction was normal and he did at least shake my hand, but he wiped it on his pants when he saw that I was doing work on the motorcycle. My hands weren't even greasy. He clearly wasn't listening to me much as I tried to make some small talk about his arrival to the area. I see your car is parked in the driveway. You know you aren't allowed to keep it outside overnight. HOA rules. His bald head was shining in the bright summer sun, hurting my eyes. Yes, I know. It's only outside for a few hours so I have more room in the garage. He walked past and craned his head to peer into my garage, leaving behind a faint whiff of alcohol. I'm not normally one to judge, especially when it comes to drinking, but it was only around noon. My neighbor made an annoyed, HMPH, noise and gave me a dirty look. Oh, so it's you who's starting that thing up before curfew allows noise like that? Really? At 5 a.m.? The judgment from him was starting to really piss me off. Plus, he's wrong. I wasn't doing anything like that. I've only gotten the bike out 3 times since summer started and it was always in the middle of the day. You must have me confused. I don't think so. Just know that if I hear your bike before 7 a.m. again I'm going to have the HOA send you a fine. Consider this your first warning. He turned on his heel and marched back towards his house. I was pretty pissed and not even in the mood to finish my motorcycle tune-up and went inside. For the next few months I couldn't help but feel like this man was watching me constantly. I honestly just thought that he was jealous or something, but this was before the day that he decided to break into my house. I was outside washing my car, which is a pretty damn nice Mercedes, and I noticed him repeatedly going to his curtains and looking at me. I'm not sure if he just has a crush on me at this point or what. My wife and daughter were both home and in the backyard hanging out in the pool. I had the garage door up and had been doing some work on the motorcycle again. It's a hobby. While I was working on the bike, I managed to very clumsily spill some oil on my pants. My wife is a big clean freak and I took out my wallet and set it on a toolbox, removed the pants in the back of the garage and took them inside to the washing area. I was probably in the house for a total of 5 minutes and went back out into the garage to continue what I was doing. A few hours passed and I started hearing my phone getting several notifications. They were from my bank. Apparently, someone had taken my card to an ATM and tried to withdraw the maximum amount of money, sending an alert to my phone asking to change my withdrawal permissions. Clearly I'm like, what the duck? How is this possible? I looked over at my wallet which was sitting on my toolbox and saw that sure as hell, my credit and debit cards were missing. I start to panic. I immediately called my bank and informed them that I am not the one trying to make these withdrawals and that they need to cancel the card. The bank was also able to see that the attempted withdrawals were made from the nearest bank to my neighborhood. As I'm standing in my driveway, talking on the phone, I noticed that my neighbor pulled up in a suspiciously perfect amount of time to potentially go to the nearest bank, make a withdrawal and then come back home. The bank canceled the card, but whoever it was managed to still take over $2,000 from my account before it was caught. Now I know that I can't accuse my neighbor just based on convenient timing, but then we had the video evidence. Apparently my neighbor, who was also seen swerving on the camera from the intersection that the bank is located at, was caught at the ATM using my debit card to withdraw money from my account. Then he was seen going to the gas station across the street and filling up his gas tank using my credit card. A few hours later, the police were knocking on his door. He answered after a painful minute of them shouting and banging loudly. Several neighbors have come out to watch at this point as well. It didn't take long for him to drunkenly admit to it and attempted to just give the cards back and say he'd return the money. Needless to say, the cops had different plans. He didn't fight them and went quietly. I received the cards and eventually the money back, but it took a while. Somehow he managed to be out and back home within the week. He must have had a good lawyer. Every time I think about it, my heart races and I'm filled with rage. My wife and daughter were home. What if he had done something to harm them? Thankfully he didn't, but this could have been worse. I realized that he's on the HOA board and I started thinking to myself, maybe I can find a way to shame this asshole even further. I attended the next meeting, which was about a week after everything happened, and gave my story with police documents to back it up. I also realized upon attending this meeting that he was not only on the board but had somehow worked his way up to the president's seat. He of course started lying, even though there were several neighbors at the meeting that had witnessed him being arrested. I told the board that he wasn't fit to be president and a murmur of agreement rippled throughout the room. I had considered not mentioning it, but I couldn't help myself. I bet he has alcohol in the cup right now, I said, and the lady next to him grabbed the metal container and sniffed it. He said that it smelled like vodka and everyone glared at him. Even though revenge is sweet, I couldn't help but to feel a twinge of sadness for the guy as he left the meeting room with his tail between his legs. No one even had to say anything. It was just a given that he was clearly voted off the board, no longer welcome back. That same meeting, I became the next board member. Not only was I going to ensure that our neighborhood had fair rules but also decent presidents and not drunken thieves. The next story is titled, Lying and Using People? I Got You. This one needs background to fully understand why I went out of my way for this revenge. My best friend was married for 10 years. With his ex for a total of 13 years. He was absolutely head over heels in love with her like I had never seen before. Which I never understood due to her alcohol abuse. She would take it out on him, and when he'd be venting about it he'd always fall back on, "It's not her, it's the illness," a very respectable and admirable stance on it. Last year she asked for a divorce because after years of what I would call abuse, he had simply run out of gas. Her reasoning for asking for one? When she got fired for testing positive for weed, he wasn't empathetic enough. He admits he wasn't because it had come on the back of one of her drunken tirades where she told him he was a piece of shit who was always trying to control her. When all he ever tried to get her away from was booze for the way she treated him when she was drunk. It took him forever to move on from this, with the divorce following shortly after. And earlier this year, after thinking he was moving on, he calls me to come over and he's in a bad way. I arrive and he is absolutely fall down level of drunk. Going on that she didn't ask for a divorce for those reasons, that she had really been cheating with several other people. The next morning when he's more coherent, I ask him how he knew. He was cleaning out the spare room and selling, donating stuff he didn't need anymore, and when he went to clear an old tablet, she was still logged on and all of the evidence was there. He gets that out and says he's going back to bed and asks me to lock up when I leave. Before I left, I looked at the tablet. After seeing what I saw, I wanted to find a way to get even with the horrible and conniving woman, so I took pictures of it all and left. When I got home I started looking up information about these people. 2 of them were just normal guys. Whether they knew she was married or not I don't know. But the third? Well, the third comes up as a registered sex offender. Still on probation for being such a disgusting pile of shit. An address listed as 123 Lane, City, State. Chomo knew that she was married. I immediately knew what I was gonna do. Chomo didn't live at 123 Lane. Chomo was living with the conniving ex. She made regular posts about their time together. On top of that, she is an avid weed user and has several firearms because she enjoys sport shooting. So I go into the state's sex offender site and make a report of Chomo not actually living where he's registered, and that Chomo is living in a home with what he has no right to, being a convicted felon and on parole. I include screenshots of the social media posts and all to back it up. I was thinking little would happen but an inconvenience to their lives. Boy was I wrong. She broke her typical posts with nothing serious trend on social media yesterday. With this gem. My year can't get any worse. Chomo lost his job and I am now facing eviction because I can't afford my rent. So I go on the state court system site to see if it's related. And yes, it was. Chomo was re-arrested. She clearly can't post bail or Chomo would be out. The job she took after being fired definitely can't support her lifestyle. So he's probably going back to prison or at least jail and she's a breath away from being homeless. I don't know if I'd ever tell my best friend I was the one behind this. But he is definitely ecstatic to see a horrible woman and sewer rat get what they deserve. Part of me wants to put up the sex offender registration link and that it's sitting in jail and say something to the effect of, it's a little more than losing a job, but not wanting to make my best friend's life harder, I'll just let sleeping dog lie. The next story is titled, An Accident Report for Soreness? Okay, I work in manufacturing and have for more than a decade. Repetitive stress injuries are really common due to the repetitive work. Shoulder and wrist are the most commonly affected areas. But risk can be reduced with economic tools which my company is refusing to buy. I work with trigger action drills a lot. These are really bad for your wrists and shoulders. We've complained but more ergonomic tools are slower and we must not affect production. There are areas in my work we don't work with them often, good area. So we take turns, in the bad area. One of my coworkers has been placed on restricted duty so he gets to skip his turn. Couple of weeks ago, my coworker was out due to their injury so I was placed in the bad area for an extended amount of time taking his turn and mine. After a couple of days, my bad wrist started bothering me. At previous employers, you'd complain to your direct supervisor, they'd send you to the nurse, on site. The nurse would restrict you to work that would not bother the injury. You'd rest and ice it in your off time and be back to full duty in a couple of days. This is not what my current employer wanted to do. Instead, I reported it to my direct supervisor. I think he thought I was lying because no one wants to work in the bad area. He said, if it hurts that bad, you'll need to file an accident report. I said, but there is no accident to report, it's just a strain injury. He rebutted with, we cannot make exceptions without documentation. We filled out an accident report, put me of light duty. Extra light duty, it was fine, boring and I was not to use my dominant hand at all. Saw the nurse the next day. Nurse basically tells me what I already know. It's a stress injury. There's nothing to do about it but take a Tylenol and ice it. She has me stay on light duty until I get a doctor's note to confirm her speculation. Basically, I need a doctor's note to say I'm fine. Because after a couple of days of light duty and not using it at all, the pain and swelling had gone away. I felt like this all could have been avoided if my boss would have given me a little compassion and benefit of the doubt. I don't complain usually, I kind of like the bad area, pacing is good. The work is less tedious but the physical strain gets to everyone. And now I have to pay for an urgent care visit, cool. So I go to urgent care and I wait 2 hours to see this poor RN who has been called in on back to the clinic after a 14-hour shift, due to an abundance of patients and poor scheduling. So he can write me a note that says, lol gob has nothing wrong with them. I told him I thought it was stupid and a waste of his time and mine. He agreed. He wrote the note and when it was given to me it said, lol gob is fine to be on regular duty but cannot use trigger action drills more than 8 hours a week. Wait, what? I can work a little more than one shift in the bad area a week. From now on. The visit summary paperwork included a small note from the RN, if pain or swelling returns, reduction of this type of work may be needed. If you have any concerns, I can be reached at, phone number, my time is yours. Scheduling around my coworker's injury and my doctor's note has been tricky. My boss complains about it but he literally made me do it. The last story is titled, You want firm cushions? We'll give you firm. This is a few years old at this point but it just came to mind and couldn't help but share. My dad is very picky about his sofa cushions. He does not like sinking into the couch he's sitting in and prefers some structure. If you know anything about sofas you know that after a while of breaking in a new couch the cushions get softer and, should be, more comfortable. Well, one day my dad got sick of sinking into the couch and decided to get these cushions restuffed. So he went to whatever place they got their couch to consult the firmness of the cushions. Well, whatever the store offered, even the firmest option they offered, my dad wasn't too happy about it. They were all too soft for him and reaffirmed that he likes them firm and asked the consultant to make them so as much as possible, beyond what the store typically offers. And so, the cushions are sent away for about 10 days, and in that time my parents went on vacation and I was left alone at home with a couple cushion-less couches. Then it happened. A couple days before returning from vacation, the restuffed cushions were delivered. I brought them in and unwrapped the overstuffed cushions. They looked more like luxurious building blocks than they did cushions, and they couldn't even fit together back into the couch, they were so thick. Can confirm though, if you tried sitting in them, you wouldn't be sinking in them anytime soon. Needless to say, they were not comfortable. I called my parents and explained the situation, and they didn't totally believe me until they came home and saw how awful they looked. Dad wanted them to work so much, but under his grumbles knew where he went wrong and had to admit the cushions had to be returned to be stuffed at the levels offered. Our couch went back to normal, and although my dad's content, he's not satisfied. Today we're getting brand new couches. I guess he got sick of the couch we had. Shout out to the consultant and whoever fulfilled the order, because my family still holds it against my dad to this day. He was taught a valuable lesson. Thank you for listening.